Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button because today we're diving into something absolutely fascinating and maybe just a little bit dark. So, before we get started, let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered where all those demon names in movies, video games, and TV shows actually come from? You know, names like Baal, Asmodeus, Paimon? Well, they're not just made up by Hollywood writers. They actually come from real historical texts that are hundreds of years old. Today, we're going on a journey through time to explore one of the most mysterious and controversial books ever written, the Goetia, also known as the Lesser Key of Solomon. And trust me, this story has everything: ancient kings, forbidden knowledge, medieval magic, persecution by the church, and secrets that people literally risked their lives to preserve. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking: wait, are we talking about actual demon summoning here? Well, yes and no. We're going to explore the historical facts, separate legend from reality, and discover how this infamous grimoire actually came to exist. Whether you're a skeptic, a believer, or just someone who loves a good historical mystery, I promise you're going to find this absolutely captivating. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and make sure you're watching this with the lights on, because we're about to open the pages of one of history's most forbidden books. And hey, if you enjoy this kind of deep dive into historical mysteries and occult topics, do me a favor and give this video a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know you want more content like this. Alright, are you ready? Let's unlock the secrets of the Goetia together. But fair warning, once you learn about this stuff, you can't unlearn it. The history is real, the controversies are real, and the influence of this text on Western culture is absolutely undeniable. Let's get started. What if I told you there's a medieval instruction manual for summoning demons that has survived for centuries, hidden in libraries, passed between occultists, and feared by religious authorities? A book so controversial that merely possessing it could have gotten you burned at the stake? Welcome to the world of the Goetia, one of history's most infamous grimoires, and today we're diving deep into its dark and mysterious origins. The Goetia, also known as the Lesser Key of Solomon, isn't just some dusty old book. It's a detailed catalog of 72 demons, complete with their ranks, powers, and specific instructions on how to summon and control them. But where did this terrifying text come from? Why did medieval scholars risk everything to copy and preserve it? And what's the real connection to the biblical King Solomon? Buckle up, because we're about to explore one of history's most forbidden texts, and the answers might surprise you. The Legend of Solomon, from wise king to master of demons. To understand the Goetia, we first need to talk about King Solomon, the legendary ruler of ancient Israel who lived around 970 to 931 BCE. According to biblical accounts, Solomon was renowned for his extraordinary wisdom, granted to him directly by God. He built the first temple in Jerusalem, judged disputes with legendary insight, and ruled over a golden age of prosperity. But here's where things get interesting. Alongside the canonical biblical stories, a massive body of folklore and legend grew around Solomon, particularly in Jewish, Christian, and Islamic traditions. These stories painted Solomon not just as a wise king, but as a master magician who commanded demons and spirits. The most famous legend tells how God gave Solomon a magical ring, often called the Seal of Solomon, inscribed with the divine name of God or a special symbol, usually depicted as a hexagram or pentagram. With this ring, Solomon could command demons, forcing them to reveal their secrets, confess their powers, and even labor to build his temple. According to these legends, Solomon didn't just control demons randomly. He systematically cataloged them, learning their names, understanding their hierarchies, and documenting how to summon and bind them. He supposedly imprisoned rebellious demons in brass vessels and forced others to serve humanity's benefit. These stories weren't considered mere fairy tales in medieval times. Scholars, theologians, and magicians genuinely believed that Solomon had written down his magical knowledge in secret books, hidden away for centuries, waiting to be rediscovered by those brave or foolish enough to seek them. The medieval obsession with ancient wisdom. To understand why the Goetia emerged when it did, we need to understand the medieval mindset toward ancient knowledge. The Middle Ages, particularly from the 12th century onward, witnessed an explosion of interest in what scholars called ancient wisdom. This period saw the translation of numerous Greek, Arabic, and Hebrew texts into Latin, bringing formerly inaccessible knowledge to European scholars. Works on philosophy, astronomy, mathematics, and yes, magic, flooded into medieval libraries. There was a genuine belief that the ancients, particularly figures like Solomon, Moses, and Hermes Trismegistus, possessed profound secrets that had been lost or hidden. Medieval scholars operated under a framework we might find strange today. They believed that all knowledge ultimately came from divine sources and that recovering ancient wisdom was a way of getting closer to divine truth. Magic, in this context, wasn't necessarily seen as evil. Instead, there was a crucial distinction between natural magic, which worked with natural forces and was considered acceptable, and demonic magic, which involved pacts with evil spirits and was condemned. The problem? The line between these categories was often blurry, and the Goetia sits right on that uncomfortable boundary. The Solomonic tradition, a literary genre, is born. The attribution of magical texts to Solomon created what scholars call the Solomonic tradition, an entire genre of magical literature claiming to preserve the great king's secret knowledge. These texts, known as grimoires, started appearing in significant numbers during the medieval period, though some claim earlier origins. The word grimoire itself comes from the Old French word for grammar, suggesting these were textbooks of a sort, instruction manuals for the magical arts. And what better way to give your magical instruction manual authority than to claim it was written by the wisest man who ever lived? Dozens of texts claimed Solomonic authorship. The Clavicula Solomonis, or Key of Solomon, is one of the oldest and most influential. The Testament of Solomon, dating to perhaps the 1st to 3rd century CE, tells the story of Solomon's demon-commanding adventures. The Almadal, the Pauline Art, and numerous other texts all claim to preserve Solomon's magical secrets. But here's the critical point: none of these texts were actually written by the historical King Solomon. They were pseudepigraphical, meaning they were attributed to a famous figure to lend them authority. This was actually a common practice in ancient and medieval literature, not necessarily intended as deception but as a way of connecting new works to established traditions. The Goetia, as we know it today, emerged from this rich tradition of Solomonic magic, but it has a more specific and traceable history. The birth of the Goetia, 17th century England. Here's where our story gets really interesting. While the Goetia claims ancient origins and is part of the broader Solomonic tradition stretching back centuries, the specific text we know as the Goetia, or the Lesser Key of Solomon, appears to have been compiled in its current form during the 17th century in England. The earliest known manuscript of the complete Le Megeton Clavicula Solomonis, the full title of the work containing the Goetia, dates to the mid-1600s. The text exists in several manuscript versions held in libraries like the British Library, with slight variations between them. But wait, you might ask, didn't you just say this was a medieval text? Well, this is where things get complicated and fascinating. The Goetia as a complete work may have been compiled in the 1600s, but it drew upon much older materials, traditions, and sources that genuinely do stretch back into the medieval period and perhaps beyond. Think of the Goetia as a compilation album. The album itself might be recent, but the songs, the tracks, come from much earlier recordings. The compiler or compilers of the Goetia gathered material from older grimoires, magical traditions, and demonological texts, organizing them into the systematic format we recognize today. The medieval roots: where did the material come from? So if the Goetia as a complete text is relatively recent, where did its contents originate? This is where we dive into genuine medieval magic and demonology. Several medieval texts contributed to what would become the Goetia. The most important is probably the Pseudomonarchia Daemonum, or False Kingdom of Demons, written by Johann Weyer in 1577. Weyer was a Dutch physician and demonologist who compiled a catalogue of demons, listing 69 demons with their names, ranks, and powers. Sound familiar? The Goetia contains 72 demons, and there's significant overlap with Weyer's list. But Weyer himself wasn't inventing these demons from whole cloth. He was drawing on even earlier sources, including medieval grimoires and demonological treatises that circulated throughout the Middle Ages. Texts like the Munich Manual of Demonic Magic from the 15th century, various versions of the Key of Solomon from the 14th and 15th centuries, and countless other manuscripts preserved fragments of this tradition. The demon names themselves often have fascinating origins. Many are corrupted versions of pagan god names. Astaroth, one of the demons in the Goetia, derives from Astarte, an ancient Middle Eastern goddess. Baal, another demon, was originally a Canaanite deity. As Christianity spread, the gods of older religions were often recast as demons, their names twisted and their natures darkened. Other demon names appear to be Hebrew in origin, though often garbled or corrupted, suggesting Jewish magical traditions influenced the development of these texts. The medieval period saw significant exchange between Jewish, Christian, and Islamic magical traditions, particularly in places like Spain where these cultures interacted. The structure of the Goetia: a user's manual for demon summoning. What makes the Goetia particularly fascinating and controversial is its systematic nature. This isn't a vague philosophical text about the nature of evil. It's a practical manual, a how-to guide for summoning and controlling specific demons. The text begins with detailed instructions for preparation. The magician must observe specific fasts, maintain ritual purity, and gather particular tools. The famous magic circle, meant to protect the magician from the demon being summoned, must be drawn with precise measurements and inscribed with specific names of God and angels. The magician requires several ritual implements: a magic sword or knife for commanding the spirits, a wand, special robes, often a crown or headband inscribed with divine names, and most importantly, the Seal of Solomon, either as a ring or a disc, which gives the magician authority over the demons. Then comes the catalogue of the 72 demons themselves. Each entry follows a similar format: the demon's name, their rank in the infernal hierarchy, the number of legions they command, their specific powers and areas of expertise, and most importantly, their unique seal or sigil, a symbolic representation that must be drawn or engraved when summoning that particular demon. The demons offer a startling array of services. Some teach sciences and liberal arts. Others reveal hidden treasures or lost objects. Some provide familiars or servants. Others can make people invisible, transport the magician anywhere instantly, or cause love or hatred between people. Some demons can teach languages, reveal the past and future, or reconcile friends and enemies. After the conjurations and assuming successful summoning, the text provides methods for binding the demon to the magician's will, forcing it to swear obedience, and ultimately dismissing it safely. Why the medieval church feared these texts. You might wonder why these texts were so feared and forbidden. After all, if they're just fantasy, what's the harm? The medieval church took demons very seriously. They weren't metaphors or symbols but real, dangerous spiritual beings constantly seeking to corrupt and destroy human souls. Any attempt to communicate with demons, even supposedly to command them, was seen as incredibly dangerous for several reasons. First, there was the theological problem. Commanding demons implies having power over them, but in Christian theology, only God has ultimate power over evil spirits. Any human claiming such power is either deluded or, worse, has actually made a pact with demons who are pretending to be controlled while actually manipulating the magician. Second, many church authorities argued that even if the rituals used divine names and claimed to work through God's power, the very act of summoning demons was sinful. You were deliberately bringing evil into the world, creating opportunities for corruption, and risking your immortal soul. Third, these texts often contained what the church considered heretical ideas. They implied that humans could access divine power through ritual means rather than through the sacraments and the church. This threatened ecclesiastical authority. Possession of such texts could lead to charges of heresy, witchcraft, or necromancy, crimes punishable by torture, imprisonment, or execution. The Inquisition actively sought out magical texts and their owners. Many manuscripts were burned, their owners forced to recant or face worse consequences. Yet despite this persecution, the texts survived, copied in secret, hidden in private libraries, passed between scholars and magicians who risked everything to preserve what they saw as valuable, if dangerous, knowledge. The Renaissance and the scholarly magician. The Renaissance brought a subtle but significant shift in how magical texts were viewed, at least in some circles. Figures like Marsilio Ficino, Giovanni Pico della Mirandola, and Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa represented a new type of learned magician. These Renaissance magicians distinguished their practice from simple superstition or demonic pact-making. They argued for a natural magic based on understanding hidden correspondences in nature, and a celestial magic working with angels and divine powers rather than demons. They drew on Neoplatonic philosophy, Hermeticism, and Jewish Kabbalah to create sophisticated magical systems. However, demonic magic never fully disappeared. It continued in an underground current, preserved in manuscripts like those that would eventually become the Goetia. Some scholars collected such texts out of curiosity or for their antiquarian interest, not necessarily intending to practice the rituals described. The 16th and 17th centuries saw an explosion of interest in demonology, not just among practitioners but among scholars and theologians trying to understand and categorize the demonic realm. Authors like Jean Bodin, King James I of England, and the previously mentioned Johann Weyer wrote extensive treatises on demons, their natures, and their activities. This intellectual environment provided the context for the compilation of the Goetia. England in the 1600s had a particular fascination with magic and the occult. Despite legal prohibitions, magical manuscripts circulated among educated elites. The Goetia emerged from this world of clandestine magical scholarship. The evolution and survival of the text. After its compilation in the 17th century, the Goetia continued to be copied and transmitted, though always in limited circles. It remained a dangerous text to own openly. Manuscript copies passed between occultists, scholars, and collectors. The text might have remained an obscure curiosity known only to specialized scholars except for a dramatic revival in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. This period saw an explosion of interest in occultism, magic, and alternative spirituality. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, a magical society founded in England in 1887, incorporated Solomonic magic into their teachings. Members of the Golden Dawn studied and practiced rituals derived from grimoires like the Goetia. The most famous popularizer of the Goetia was Aleister Crowley, the controversial occultist who joined the Golden Dawn and later founded his own magical order. In 1904, Crowley published an English translation of the Goetia with illustrations by his associate, making the text widely available for the first time. Crowley's edition included his own commentary and interpretations, viewing the demons as psychological forces or aspects of the unconscious mind rather than literal external entities. This psychological interpretation would become influential in modern occultism, offering a way to engage with the text that didn't require belief in actual demons. Throughout the 20th century, the Goetia remained popular in occult circles. New editions, translations, and commentaries appeared regularly. The text influenced fiction, music, art, and popular culture, becoming one of the most recognizable grimoires in the Western magical tradition. Modern perspectives, history, psychology, or reality. Today, scholars and practitioners approach the Goetia from various perspectives, each offering different insights into this controversial text. Academic historians study the Goetia as a cultural artifact, tracing its development, identifying its sources, and understanding what it reveals about medieval and early modern attitudes toward magic, demons, and spiritual power. From this perspective, the text is valuable as a historical document regardless of whether the rituals actually work. Psychologists and those influenced by Carl Jung's analytical psychology sometimes interpret the demons as personifications of psychological forces, unconscious drives, or archetypal energies. From this view, summoning demons becomes a technique for confronting and integrating repressed or shadow aspects of the psyche. The elaborate rituals serve as a form of structured imagination or active meditation. Religious scholars, particularly those in Christian traditions, continue to view the text with suspicion or condemnation, seeing it as either dangerous spiritual practice or, at minimum, as promoting unhealthy fascination with darkness and evil. Practicing occultists and magicians approach the text in various ways. Some work with it literally, believing in actual spiritual entities and following the rituals as written. Others adopt the psychological model, using the structures as tools for personal transformation. Still, others study it as part of recovering historical magical practices, seeking to understand how magicians of previous centuries thought and worked. What's undeniable is that the Goetia continues to fascinate people centuries after its compilation. Whether viewed as history, psychology, spirituality, or dangerous nonsense, it remains one of the most discussed and controversial texts in the Western esoteric tradition. Conclusion: the enduring mystery. The story of the Goetia is ultimately a story about human desire for power, knowledge, and control. It reflects medieval beliefs about the spiritual world, the persistence of ancient traditions, and humanity's endless fascination with the forbidden and the unknown. Did King Solomon actually command 72 demons with a magical ring? Almost certainly not in any literal historical sense. The biblical Solomon may have been a real king, but the magical Solomon is a legendary figure, a symbol of wisdom and power that accumulated stories and attributes over centuries. Are the demons in the Goetia real entities, psychological forces, cultural constructs, or pure fiction? That depends on your worldview, your beliefs, and perhaps your personal experiences. The text has proven powerful not because we can definitively prove its claims, but because it continues to provoke questions, inspire imagination, and challenge our assumptions about reality. What we can say with certainty is that the Goetia represents a genuine historical tradition of magical practice stretching back through the centuries. It preserved medieval beliefs about demons and their hierarchies, transmitted techniques and rituals passed between generations of practitioners, and crystallized centuries of Solomonic lore into a systematic form. The Grimoire survived persecution, obscurity, and skepticism to remain relevant today. Whether approached as history, as psychology, as spirituality, or as fantasy, it continues to offer a window into how humans have understood and attempted to navigate the mysterious, the dangerous, and the unknown. The Goetia reminds us that throughout history, humans have sought power beyond their natural limitations, knowledge beyond conventional wisdom, and contact with realms beyond the visible world. Whether we condemn this as dangerous folly or celebrate it as spiritual exploration, we cannot ignore the persistence of these desires and the elaborate systems humans have created to pursue them. So the next time you encounter references to the Goetia in books, movies, music, or games, remember, you're encountering not just a piece of fiction, but a genuine artifact of human spiritual history, a text that has inspired, terrified, and fascinated people for centuries, and continues to do so today. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the dark origins of one of history's most controversial books. Whatever you believe about demons, magic, or the supernatural, the story of the Goetia offers fascinating insights into human culture, belief, and the eternal quest for hidden knowledge. So there you have it, the complete and controversial history of the Goetia, from the legendary King Solomon to the underground magical circles of medieval Europe, all the way to modern occultism and pop culture. We've journeyed through centuries of forbidden knowledge, traced the evolution of one of history's most dangerous books, and uncovered the truth behind the legends. The Goetia stands as a testament to humanity's endless fascination with the unknown, our desire to control what we fear, and our willingness to risk everything in pursuit of hidden power. Whether you see this grimoire as a historical curiosity, a psychological tool, a spiritual practice, or simply an elaborate fiction, one thing is undeniable: the Goetia has left an indelible mark on Western culture. Its influence echoes through literature, film, music, and art. Its 72 demons have become cultural icons, recognized even by those who have never opened its pages. But here's my question for you: what do you think? Are these ancient grimoires just medieval superstition, or could there be something more to them? Do you believe the rituals and invocations hold real power, whether psychological or supernatural? Or are they simply fascinating artifacts of a more mystical time? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective on this controversial topic. And please, keep the discussion respectful. Whether you're a skeptic, a believer, a historian, or just someone fascinated by the weird and mysterious, everyone's viewpoint adds to the conversation. If you found this deep dive into occult history fascinating, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We've got plenty more explorations into forbidden texts, mysterious practices, and hidden histories coming your way. Click that notification bell so you never miss an episode. And if you're interested in learning more about historical grimoires and magical traditions, check out the video I'll link in the card above, where we explore other infamous books of magic and their surprising origins. Before you go, a word of caution: this video is for educational and historical purposes. The Goetia and similar texts describe practices that many consider spiritually dangerous, psychologically harmful, or simply ineffective. If you're curious about these topics, approach them with critical thinking, do your research, and consider the historical context. This isn't an endorsement or encouragement to practice anything described here, just an exploration of a fascinating piece of cultural history. Remember, knowledge is power, but wisdom is knowing how to use that knowledge responsibly. Thank you so much for watching, for staying curious, and for exploring the darker corners of history with me. The past is full of mysteries, controversies, and secrets waiting to be uncovered, and I'm grateful you chose to spend your time discovering them here. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and keep questioning everything. See you in the next video, where we'll dive into another chapter of history's hidden mysteries. This has been your guide to the dark origins of the Goetia. Take care, and remember, some books are famous not because everyone should read them, but because everyone should know they exist. Peace out, and see you next time.